You know how they say that death and taxes are the only things you can count on in life? Well, look what they forgot.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, hello, how do you do? Shady Doorags here. Woo, I feel great. Had a nice long vacation and now I'm rested and rejuvenated, which is good because a month without content means I'm kind of broke now. I need to get some green paper fast. And of course, when Shady Doorags needs green paper, he defaults to reviewing a King of the Hill episode. But not just any King of the Hill episode. A capitalism King of the Hill episode. Today we're looking at Business is Picking Up, an episode that contains really good advice about entrepreneurship. It also contains really bad advice about entrepreneurship, but we'll get to that. The episode starts with the Hills having breakfast. Bobby and Hank discuss how later that day, 8th graders will start shadowing jobs for the week.
Ready to spend a week working in the real world, son?
Yep, I've even practiced my office small talk.
I remember my shadowing experience. I was a CAD student and got to see how a civil engineering firm made their blueprints. It sucked. Despite agreeing to let me shadow them, the company didn't have anything for me to do, so they stuck me in a back room where I looked at books and schematics. I wasn't one known for skipping class, but eventually I just started going to the library instead, so I didn't feel like I was wasting my time. I got an A+ on that assignment. Hank tells Bobby to make sure he signs up with Strickland Propane immediately so they can head straight to work. Bobby, however, was hoping he'd use this opportunity to get a propane-free experience for once in his life.
This isn't about doing something new, Bobby. It's about taking advantage of the great head start you've already got.
Yeah. Okay, well, might as well rip this Band-Aid off right now. This is an episode where I heavily disagree with Hank's perspective. First of all, Hank obviously has a bias, so in his mind, he can't see how doing a job that involves propane could be anything but fulfilling. For someone like Bobby, however, one has to spruce up a job like Hank's to find it interesting, which does happen in other episodes where Bobby works at Strickland. Second, Hank argues that Bobby should go to Strickland's because he's already got a foot in the door, and that if he cements himself now, he could have a promising career planned for the rest of his life. Now, that's not necessarily false. The earlier you start planning your life and committing to a certain future, the easier it becomes to make that future a reality. However, sticking too closely to a path and never branching out could mean missing other opportunities for potentially better futures. I spent years trying to get a desk job as a programmer and didn't realize I wanted to be a YouTuber until my mid-20s. I can only imagine what would have happened if I refused to pursue what I now consider to be an amazing time in my life. Don't get me wrong, there's no harm in working towards a lifelong goal early, but it's best to keep your mind open for other opportunities that arise, especially if you're young.
Bobby is a young man. Don't you think he should be learning to make his own decisions?
Wow, the NPC meme before it was a thing. Later at the school, most of the kids are excited about what they might be doing for the rest of the week. Bobby, however, feels he has nothing to look forward to but disappointment.
My dad's leaning on me to spend the week at Strickland, and the first day is just going to be a safety lecture about open flames and runaway trucks.
Huh?
I do believe Joseph just foreshadowed about shadowing. The kids enter the gym, and instead of beelining it to Hank like he was told, Bobby gets distracted by all the different options. This gives Joseph time to make his move.
Hey, Mr. Hill, I want to do propane.
Hank tries to turn down Joseph, saying he's saving the one spot he has for Bobby, but he gets told by Principal Moss that he's not allowed to play favorites.
Principal Moss, I'm saving this spot for Bobby, and I don't want him shadowing me.
Yo, Hank, that's messed up. You've known Joseph since he was born. His, dad is your best friend. Bobby finally makes his way over to Hank, but is told he was too late. It seems his only option is working for a company called Earth Cleaners.
Never heard of it.
Very successful local business.
Wait, local? As in...
I'm Peter Sterling, founder and president of this little situation here.
Entrepreneurship! Ladies, get yourself a man who looks at you the way Shady looks at entrepreneurship.
I'm supposed to be your shadow this week.
Well, all right. We're going to have some delightful times, mi amigo.
Really?
Now we're talking. Bobby, you get to see what it's like working for yourself. And pray tell, Mr. Sterling, what is the nature of your profession?
At Earth Cleaners, we only do one thing, but we do it so sweet. We pick up poo.
Whose poo are we picking up?
90% dogs, 10% other.
So you're saying that you run your own business and it's a business made explicitly to pick up poop, which means it's an entrepreneurship. At Strickland Propane, we see Hank introducing Joseph to the job. Joseph, however, gets easily distracted and doesn't seem to be taking anything seriously.
She's pretty hot. Did you guys ever do anything?
Hank's married, Joseph. He has been for pretty much all his adult life. Why was it your instinct to think he'd cheat? Oh.
You know, if you twist that valve far enough, you'll kill us all. Why don't you just stand outside?
All right, dudes and dudettes, you ready to overanalyze something? In order for that joke to hit properly, the shot should have lingered on Joseph for just a second or two more. This would have properly emphasized him not caring that he's putting his and everyone else's lives in danger. In context of the joke, Hank stopping him comes in too early. However, it is within Hank's character that he would act this quickly. The scene chose the character over the punchline, which is usually what I advocate for. Bobby sends a message to Hank that he wants to transfer over to Strickland. It would take some time for Hank to open up another slot though, so at least for today, Bobby is stuck with earth cleaners. At first, Bobby is disappointed, but once he gets a taste of the entrepreneurship life, he starts to warm up to it very quickly. Back in the alley, Hank and the boys are discussing their son's working when Bobby and Peter arrive. Hank is ready to start training Bobby for Strickland, but it turns out Bobby has had a change of heart.
Dad, I decided I'm sticking with earth cleaners. It's the best job ever!
What does earth cleaners do anyway?
Why don't we show him, partner?
You pick up poop? My boy is gonna spend an entire week picking up dog poop for school credit. I hate to say this, but it seems like the system's not working.
Wait, Hank, do you have a problem with picking up poop? Well, actually, I have a problem with picking up poop. And it's that they keep calling it picking up poop. This annoyance is something I think the episode does intentionally. Instead of describing what Peter does as waste handling or excrement relocation, phrases that sound like actual jobs, they call it picking up poop. This is because the episode wants to make it easier to look down on Peter's job, and poop is a word that most people don't take seriously. Ignoring the labeling, I do have to wonder why Hank would have a problem with what Bobby is doing. The labor is honest, physical, and it involves both machinery and lawn care, all things Hank would normally find value in. So what about entrepreneurship is upsetting him so much? Is it because it's dirty? Because if so, that's extremely judgmental of you, Hank. You also think sewage management is a dishonorable job? What about garbage men? I guess they should be ashamed of themselves.
Education today is so complicated. As a parent, I'd like to change things. Though as an educator, I'd like people to mind their own business.
Huh. Topical. Parents getting involved in education is people minding their own business. It's their kids' education you're talking about. Unless you can prove a parent is negligent and or incompetent, they should always get the final say-so of what happens to their kid. Hank wants to pull Bobby out of the job, but Peggy explains that doing so would just make Bobby want to rebel, and that the best course of action is to be supportive.
Well, it feels like this is one of those things where if we support it now, we'll just wind up having to accept it later.
Finally, Hank says something I can get behind. Ignoring that I disagree with Hank about the job itself, it is a parent's job to steer their child away from negative influences. Simply hoping the child grows out of whatever they're into can indeed lead to them delving further into it without any barriers. Not saying that doing this isn't a viable option, just not one without potential consequences.
Bobby has to learn to make choices now. Do you want to spend the rest of your life making his choices for him?
And here comes Peggy with a great counterpoint. While yes, a child is the parent's responsibility, part of that is teaching the child to make their own choices because they won't be a child forever. This is honestly a very complicated situation. I think the best course of action here is for Hank to simply be honest. Because Bobby is old enough to know right from wrong, Hank should let Bobby make this decision, but explain that he doesn't support it and why. Hank should also make it clear that, in the end, he'll always be there to support Bobby himself, even if he doesn't approve of the boy's actions. Ironic that honesty is the best course of action here, considering the direction the episode actually goes. Later, we see Peter continuing to show Bobby the perks of his job.
I don't have a boss. I make my own hours. There's no stress, and the business is rock steady.
Other than that rock steady part, Peter just described in a nutshell why I simp so hard for entrepreneurship. So many things in life become easier when you're the only person you answer to. While Bobby gets closer to Peter, Joseph gets farther from Hank. No matter what Hank says or does, Joseph continues to get distracted and ignore basic manners.
And if you're cooking burgers or stuff, don't drop your cat in there, because it could, explode.
That's me when I say anything without a script. This gets so bad that Dale, who wants to see Joseph succeed, intervenes and tells his son he needs to step up his game.
What are you doing?
I'm shadowing you to make sure that you're properly shadowing Hank, which you are not.
We got another B-plot here that may have had an ending once upon a time, but as of now does not, and we basically never see Joseph again in this episode. In the alley, Hank tries to get some perspective and asks the boys if they'd be ashamed to see their son doing what his is.
I don't see any problem there.
Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with them damn honest work, man.
Probably wouldn't bother me.
It's difficult to read everyone's responses here. I can't tell if they're trying to save face or if they genuinely think what Bobby is doing is fine. However, because the next moment is Con mocking Bobby and all the boys laughing, I'm going to assume it's the former. And if that's the case, this feels weird to me. Like, why would Dale, a man who handles dead animals, and Bill, a man who is openly disgusting to the point his house has constant rats in it, care about Bobby doing a gross job? My best guess is they have the same hangup as Hank, whose issues with entrepreneurship still haven't been fully disclosed yet. Elsewhere with the Earth Cleaners, Peter and Bobby have a discussion about successful business. Freaking finally!
You know what the key to success in business is, Bobby?
Doing a task that society views as valuable, seizing opportunity, and problem solving.
My dad's been saying it my whole life. You find something that people want and you give it to them.
I mean, that's included in what I said, so yeah, I agree.
But here's the problem. The whole stuff people want market, well, it's all pretty much locked up. There's nothing new to give people.
Disagree. New inventions are being made all the time. Shoot, it doesn't even have to be something completely new, just something with a new spin on it. You think I'm the only successful cartoon reviewer here on YouTube? I mean, yes, I'm the only one who matters. That's a fact. That's different than saying I'm the only one.
So my key to business success is this. You find the thing that no one else wants to do, and you do it.
Yeah, that works, but that's still giving people a thing they want. The thing you're giving them is a service. People want something that retrieves and disposes of excrement, and as a result, you give your service.
Think about it. Any idiot could pick up a piece of poop, but 9 times out of 10, he doesn't.
That's brilliant.
Bobby, you were given this exact advice by Hank.
Previously on Avatar.
Here's a great one. Find the job nobody wants, and then do it better.
This is why Hank's role in this episode feels so out of left field to me. Hank is the last person who should chastise Bobby for doing what he does, especially when, like I said earlier, there are many aspects about this job that he normally praises. Bobby mentions to Peter that he feels Hank doesn't really get what they do. Not sure how Bobby knows that, but whatever. Peter thinks the best thing he can do to prove what a great lifestyle he has is invite the Hills over for dinner and show off his mansion. Is that a freaking arcade room? And he's got a hot wife? Bruh, I am sold. There has yet to be a single downside to this lifestyle.
I hate to pry, but you couldn't have paid for all this by just, you know.
Hank, my clientele is made up of practically every rich person in the Heimlich County area. I've got almost no overhead expenses and no competition.
How? How can anyone not be impressed?
Hey, did Bobby tell you about our wild afternoon?
That does not sound like an appropriate topic for dinner.
No, but we support Bobby, so we'd love to hear.
Peggy, no! You can be supportive after dinner.
It was like nothing I'd ever seen. It was gigantic, too big even for the scoop.
And it was really leafy. Peter tried picking it up.
But it just crumbled in my hands.
I've never really been a dinner person. I'm just gonna go sit in the car for a few hours.
Well, did the third shower help?
No, it did not.
Well, you can't say you didn't ask for it, Peggy. You knew the profession was about waste handling, yet told the man you wanted to hear his riveting tale.
Well, thank God the week's over tomorrow and everything will be back to normal.
Wait, Hank, do you still disapprove of the man's job? Why? I get it, he and Bobby weren't the most socially aware at dinner, but that's easily solvable by just having them not talk about what they do. The final day of Shadow Week does indeed come and go. However, Bobby has a surprise for Hank.
Dad, it's not my last day. I'm taking Peter's business model and I'm starting my own company.
Bobby's new company will specialize in on-the-call vomit cleaning. I mean, that idea could work, Bobby, though if you recall, Peter's business targets the upper class and he works on a schedule that he's the master of. The man set himself up for having the most profitable clientele with no signs of stopping, while being in a stress-free work environment that he had complete control over. Vomiting is not an inevitability like defecating, so you'll be limited to places where vomit occurs regularly, aka not upper-class establishments. And even with the contracts you'll be getting, incidents aren't a guarantee. Also, by making your business on call, your schedule is now at the whims of your customers. Again, I'm not saying the idea wouldn't work, but it seems like Bobby missed out on a lot of reasons why Peter's business is treating him so well. With Bobby wanting to clean up behind others full time, Hank now has to openly disapprove of what his son is doing.
This job has a future.
Bobby, did you wash your hands before dinner?
Felt that. Bobby, regardless of anything else, that jumpsuit should have been off before you got to the dinner table.
Well, there's more to a career than money, son. There's the matter of respect.
See, I do agree with that statement. There are jobs out there that are perfectly legal and earn tons of money that I still would not want my child doing. I mean, despite his potential financial success, how many parents would actually be okay knowing their daughter is an OnlyFans model? I just disagree with Hank that entrepreneurship is one of those jobs.
Other than the fact that it's not the great almighty propane, show me just one downside to my career.
I hate that Bobby walked out in that scene because he has a point. Hank and the episode act like there's some inherent reason as to why these types of jobs are dishonorable, but I have no idea why. So Hank figures if he can't get Bobby to quit, maybe Peter can. He talks to Peter about convincing Bobby to leave this career path.
Do you have a problem with what I do, Hank?
Not at all.
Could have fooled me! You spent the entire episode ashamed that Bobby was doing this job. If you have no problem with what Peter does, then what on earth are you so upset about?
Look, Peter, you're a tall, handsome, well-put-together guy. So a guy like you can pull off a career like this. Now, Bobby, well, he's different than you.
Oh, okay. Hank, that's stupid. You think Bobby, the kid who dates Connie, who is way above his punching class, the kid who created the Propaniacs, the kid who got a Japanese girl he just met, and an older girl to make out with him, doesn't have the charisma to pull off a job like this? You know what? Let's say you're right. Let's say Bobby's natural charisma is lacking. Do you not think that's something he can learn? All I'm hearing is that you, Hank, don't believe in your son. You think only certain people can be happy in this type of work environment and that Bobby isn't one of them. So in case you missed it, Hank's problem this entire episode was him projecting his insecurity about being bullied onto Bobby. And as if that reasoning wasn't painfully awful already, it gets so much worse. You see, for some baffling reason, Peter agrees with Hank. Despite Peter having full confidence in Bobby moments ago, he starts to believe that there is indeed a good chance Bobby could be bullied doing what he does. So to get the message to Bobby without him having to hate Hank, Peter stages a scene where he gets beat up.
It's the poo man, and he's picking poo!
He's one of the mashers.
The mashers?
They're just one group of many who take pleasure in hurting guys who do what I do. You should know, Bobby, it's not an easy life.
I hate this so much. Okay, to be fair, I know what the episode is trying to say. It's trying to say that there is a consequence to the lifestyle Bobby is choosing that he is unaware of. Though Bobby did shadow Peter, Peter is too charismatic to have encountered anyone hating him for what he does. Hank knows about these consequences because he, as an ex-bully, understands how they think. So Peter is simulating that consequence to give Bobby an understanding of what he's getting himself into. From the episode's perspective, Peter is using a ruse to give a truthful warning. And again, there is some truth to this mindset. I love being a YouTuber, but I've seen people who successfully get into the YouTube life, yet because of their personality and or approach, they bring about consequences they didn't expect and wind up being miserable. However, even with that knowledge, when it comes to what Peter does here, all I see is a big fat lie. The episode is doing the exact same thing it did when Bobby became a fat kid model. It invents a reason for Bobby not to do a job that has nothing but upsides, and then forces that reason to be reality. Only this time is arguably worse because the invented reason doesn't actually happen. Bobby is making a decision based off of a lie. Later, we see Bobby and Hank discussing what happened to Peter.
It's kind of unfair, but that's how it is with most ways of making big, easy money. It either gets you jail time or your ass kicked.
Hey, what? Could you be any more biased, Hank? Jeez. The episode ends with Bobby giving up on his business, but he immediately comes up with an idea for another one, only this time it's one that Hank isn't ashamed of. And that was business is picking up. I both love this episode and absolutely detest it. All the advice Bobby was getting about entrepreneurship from Peter is amazing. Shoot, even the advice that Hank gives to Joseph can be taken to heart. The problem comes in with Hank's clear bias against Peter's profession. It does not make sense to me that Hank wouldn't like what Peter does when the job involves so many aspects that Hank normally praises. Hank's problem with the job exists only because of his own fear of being bullied that he projects onto Bobby, and then the episode has to lie to make that fear a reality. The negatives of this episode hit me personally because I'm constantly trying to convince people to try out entrepreneurship. I know it's not for everyone, and I know not all who try are going to succeed in it, but there are so many benefits to becoming your own boss and choosing your own hours, yet many people simply don't think to try it. So seeing Bobby be manipulated out of an entrepreneurship career, especially one that has proven to lead to a profitable and easy life, really irks me. Yes, it is a parent's job to steer their kid away from lifestyles that would cause them to lose respect, but that's mostly about losing respect from oneself. And if you have to lie to make a point seem valid, maybe it was never a good point to begin with. This has been Shady Doorags. So long. Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Goodbye.